Thank you very much. My name's David Pilling. I'm the Asia editor of the Financial Times. To my immediate right, I would like to introduce Tetsuya Kubo, who's the Senior Managing Director of Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation, one of Japan's 3 mega banks. To his right, Dr. Ranee Jayamaha. She's advisor to Sri Lanka's president on banking. She was formerly Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka and a special advisor on economics to the Commonwealth Secretariat. To her right, Mr. Yi from Industrial and Commercial Bank of China. As you know, ICBC is now the world's biggest bank by deposits and by market capitalization. Finally, we have Dominic Barton, Global Managing Director of McKinsey. If I could start with Mr. Yi. The title of this discussion is The Asian Century, Implications for the Financial Industry. But I'm interested in examining that question. Is this really the Asian century? Specifically in China. China has taken huge steps. It's pulled out all the stops to get its economy going again. My question is, how effective have those measures been?
那么从这一次金融危机，我个人也感觉，对亚洲是一次考验，更是一种机遇。所以我们也感觉到，今后亚洲会有很多的机遇，因为我们的经济总体是健康的。我们的经济发展速度这28年，我们的平均增长速度7%几，超过全球平均4个百分点，我们在全球比重在大幅度提升。我们亚洲的金融业总体是健康的，还有我们亚洲的文化储蓄率还是比较高的，杠杆率也没有那么高，我们的金融，所以我们没有形成各种金融危机的一些基础，所以今后亚洲的希望还是很大的。这也是我们国家在分析的时候采取的一些措施。总体我感觉到效果还是非常明显的。我们觉得中国经济的有效回升，不但是对中国金融业推动发展，更重要对全球的经济也是一大贡献。
Could I just bring in Dominic there before I turn to the view from Japan, which I'm also very interested in. But looking at China from outside, I know you know China very well. Are you convinced that this is not just a kind of a one-hit wonder? Assuming that the West doesn't recover and that we have the L or the W that we talked about yesterday, can China go it alone?
Well, maybe I'd start off by saying I'm a bull on Asia, and I think China's a big part of that. 900 million people in the region urbanizing and moving into the middle class, which is just an unheard of number in human history, which is going to drive, I think, a huge amount of growth in the region. It's not financial, it's driven by this urbanization of what's moving on. And I think in China, we're going to see anywhere in the order of 300 to 400 million people moving from the rural areas to the urban areas. And if you look at the stimulation program in China, what gets me excited about it is it's been quite focused. There is obviously a big part on infrastructure, more airports, more roads, more railways. They actually need it. I don't believe those are white elephants on any measure that you look at it. But most importantly is on the consumer, because we need to ignite the consumer. You just said 35% of GDP is on the consumer side. A lot of the stimulation is actually focused on that, what we would call the lower, upper middle class group that's coming into the system, helping them buy TVs, scooters, handphones, and so forth. And I think if China can shift to more of a domestically driven economy versus an export-driven economy, or I would argue infrastructure, investment-driven economy, that's good for all of us. The only challenge I would say is while there are hundreds of millions of people, compared to the billion consumers and many of the US consumers who are driving the economy, obviously the purchasing is at lower levels. So there's no way China's going to power us out of this crisis.
I certainly want to talk about igniting the consumer and how that might be done, and the dangers that maybe lie therein a little bit later. But first of all, Kubo-san, Is this Asia's century? How does it look from Japan? Can, for instance, Japan decouple from growth in the West? It hasn't made such a good show of doing that recently.
A great number of Japanese core customers are being forced to look for the growth outside Japan because of the shrinking market. As you know, that Japanese population will start declining very soon. So the corporation will have to look for the growth, and China is one of the most promising market from the manufacturing industry point of view, and also from the financial industry's point of view.
What about the state of the Japanese economy itself?
As to the financial industry, I think our financial system as a whole has done very well. And compared with American and European financial industry, our financial industry is in a much better shape, I believe. And I think that we, Japanese banks, have got very good liquidity. For instance, that loan-to-deposit ratio is far lower than those of American and European banks. So our system is in a very, very good shape, I suppose.